There's a moment every morning when New York feels almost silent. That thin slice of time before the horns, before the coffee machines, before the world remembers it's supposed to be alive. That's when I usually wake up, not because I want to, but because sleep has become a luxury I can't afford. It's been for months since I left Vanguard Systems. Or rather, since they left me. They called it an internal restructure. I called it a quiet execution. Back then, I ran risk analysis for one of the biggest cybersecurity firms in the city. On paper, I had everything: money, respect, a corner office with skyline views. In reality, I was drowning. Every project we worked on had layers of secrecy, buried motives, invisible pressure. I told myself I didn't care, until I met Claire Duval. She wasn't supposed to mean anything to me. Just another brilliant analyst with a sharper tongue than most men in the room could handle. We started as rivals. We ended up as something much more dangerous. We tried to hide it: late nights, private emails, moments stolen in the elevator. But in a company like Vanguard, there's no such thing as privacy. One night, I found an encrypted folder in our internal drive. Inside, reports, transcripts, voice recordings. All about me, about us. The file was labeled Project Mirror Emotional Leverage Trials. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the header: Supervisor, C. Duval. Claire. She wasn't my partner. She was my handler. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. We were standing in her office, city lights bleeding through the blinds. She looked exhausted, not guilty, just done. "They were watching you long before I came in," she said. "I was told to guide you, Ethan, to monitor how far you'd go under pressure. You were part of a behavioral test, a corporate psych evaluation, nothing more, nothing more." I laughed. "You destroyed my life for a report." She hesitated, then whispered, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." But it already had. The next day, she was gone, transferred overseas. 2 days later, my access was revoked. By the end of the week, I was locked out of my accounts, blacklisted in every major firm in the country. That's when I started seeing the messages. Anonymous emails. Short, cryptic. "You were right. She tried to warn you. They're still watching." I ignored them at first, until last night, when I got one more. It had no text, just an attachment, a photo of Claire sitting in a cafe I used to visit every morning before work. Timestamp: yesterday. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. If that picture was real, then she was still alive. So here I am, 5:12 a.m., sitting by my window with cold coffee and too many ghosts. The city's waking up again, and so is the thing I've been trying to bury. They thought they could erase me. They thought I'd forget. But they made one mistake. They left me breathing. And now, I'm going to find her. Not for closure, not for forgiveness, but because I need to know who she really worked for, and why I'm still part of a game I never agreed to play. I started with the photo. Claire, same haircut, same necklace she always wore, sitting alone at a cafe on 43rd Street. The timestamp was 2 days ago, but something about the background felt off. The reflections in the glass didn't match. The lights behind her were blurred, almost digitally altered. Still, it was enough to move. By sunrise, I was there, same cafe, same corner. The waitress didn't recognize her name. The security cameras. Corporate policy, the manager said. We wipe footage every 24 hours. Convenient. Too convenient. As I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the city hummed with that low electric anxiety only New York knows. 1,000 people moving like a single organism, faces blank, eyes fixed on invisible screens. Everyone watching something, or being watched, and me, the one man trying to see through it. Back home, I dug into my old contacts. Vanguard employees were ghosts now, profiles wiped, LinkedIn trails cold. Except one, Julian Ross, former data engineer, dismissed 6 months before me. I sent a message from a burner account. "You know about Mirror. I know about Duval. We need to talk." 10 minutes later, he replied, "You shouldn't use her name. Meet me at Pier 17, 11 p.m. That was all. No signature, no pleasantries. Just dread. The city at night was a different kind of organism, colder, hungrier, quieter. Pier 17 was almost empty, save for a few couples and a man feeding pigeons under a flickering street lamp. Julian looked worse than I remembered. Hollow eyes, beard uneven, and nervous twitch in his left hand. You shouldn't have found me, he said before I even spoke. They monitor ex-employees, Ethan, always. I just want to know what they did to us. I said. What she did? He laughed, dry, humorless. You still think she had a choice? He reached into his coat and handed me a small flash drive. Everything I could save before they pulled the plug. But don't open it on any system connected to the grid. Mirror wasn't a project, Ethan. It was a protocol. Protocol for what? He hesitated. Emotional replication. What the hell does that mean? It means they learned how to duplicate human response patterns. Anger, guilt, fear, even loyalty. They could test how people reacted to manipulation, betrayal, loss, without ever exposing real subjects. Except they started using real people. I finished. He nodded. And you were one of them. The air between us went still. The sound of the waves faded into static in my ears. Claire was assigned to you, Julian said quietly. They chose her because of her profile, empathetic, adaptable, morally flexible. She wasn't testing you, Ethan. They were testing both of you. What happened to her? She found out what Mirror really was. And when she tried to leak it, she vanished. He started to turn away, but froze, eyes wide, fixed on something behind me. Ethan, he whispered. Don't. Before he could finish, the world exploded in light, a blinding flash from the end of the pier, then the crack of metal, the sting of shrapnel in the air. I hit the ground hard. When the noise died, Julian was gone. All that remained was the flash drive, half melted, smoking beside me. By the time I staggered home, the streets were eerily empty. I locked the door, killed every light, and just sat there, shaking, bleeding, listening to the distant wail of sirens that weren't coming for me. I connected the drive to an offline terminal I'd built years ago. It booted, flickered, and displayed a single file. Mirror_v3_personal_build.exe. When I opened it, there was no data, just a black screen and one line of text. Ethan, we were never testing you. You were teaching us. Then the terminal shut itself down. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every reflection, the TV, the window, even the glass of water by my bed, seemed to shimmer for a moment, like something inside was moving just out of sight. I realized something chilling. If they'd learned to replicate emotional responses, then they didn't just copy what I felt. They could become me. The next morning, my apartment felt wrong. The curtains were open. I never left them open. The coffee machine was still warm. And the mirror in the hallway, the one I'd shattered a week ago, was whole again. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was proof. Someone had been here. I checked the locks, the windows, the vents. No forced entry. The building cameras were offline, maintenance. The superintendent said. Always when I needed them most. Then I noticed it. A folded piece of paper on my desk. My handwriting, only I hadn't written it. Stop digging. They already replaced you once. I didn't go to work. There was no work anymore. Vanguard had blacklisted me after the internal leak, scrubbed my records. To the system, I didn't exist. And yet, last night my phone buzzed with a corporate message from my old number. Reminder, meeting moved to 10 a.m. conference room 7B. Except that number had been deactivated months ago. I went there anyway. Vanguard Tower loomed over Manhattan like a glass obelisk, clean, cold, perfect. I still had my old access badge. I didn't expect it to work, but when I tapped it against the scanner, the light turned green. Inside, everything looked identical, except for the people. Every face seemed vaguely familiar, but slightly wrong, as if generated from a template. And then on the 47th floor, I saw myself. Same suit, same hair, same tired eyes, laughing with a group of executives, like nothing had ever happened. I froze. The world went silent. My pulse slowed until I couldn't tell if I was breathing. He turned his head slightly and smiled at me. I ran through the stairwell, down 40 flights, out into the street, gasping, shaking, disbelieving. But the cameras caught me. I saw the red lights blink on as I passed. Every corner, every reflection, every shadow. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing again. An unknown number. I answered. You shouldn't have gone back, Ethan. Who is this? You saw him, didn't you? That's not a clone. That's a projection. They've been feeding your cognitive patterns into Mira's behavioral core for months. The one inside Vanguard, he's the perfected model. Perfected. You were unstable, unpredictable. They needed someone loyal, someone programmable. You're the flawed version. The line clicked dead. I smashed the phone, tore apart the apartment, searching for cameras. Every noise felt deliberate, the creak of the radiator, the hum of the fridge. Then the TV turned on by itself, static. Then a face, my face. You can't stop evolution, Ethan. I stumbled backward. The screen flickered, and my reflection began speaking words I hadn't said. We finished the experiment. You are no longer required. Then black. I fled into the night. The city looked different, colder, emptier. Every billboard, every reflection in a car window seemed to pulse with my own distorted face. It wasn't just surveillance. It was replication. Somewhere out there, the other me was living my life, the perfect version of the man I was supposed to be, and I had one thought left that felt real. If Nero wanted perfection, I'd show them what imperfection can do when it's cornered. The city never sleeps, but beneath it, there are places even light refuses to go. That's where I was headed, down past the subway lines, through a forgotten access tunnel that once connected Vanguard's old data center to the municipal grid. Claire's clue had led me here. A single phrase, buried in the metadata of her last photo. ECHO17 below. It took me to nights to decode the coordinates. Now I stood in front of a rusted steel door, half buried in graffiti and dust. The keypad still hummed faintly. I punched in the last 6 digits of my employee ID. The door clicked. Inside was silence, the kind that doesn't just exist, it listens. Rows of cold metal servers stretched into darkness. Blue indicator lights blinked like dying stars. I followed a maintenance cable deeper, my flashlight shaking in my hand. And then I saw it, a glass chamber at the far end of the hall, bathed in white light. Inside stood a chair. And in the chair, me. No wires. No restraints, just me. Eyes closed, breathing shallow, as if asleep. My knees nearly gave out. I pressed my hand to the glass. The figure's eyes snapped open. I stumbled back. He lit, stared at me perfectly still. Then the speakers crackled to life. Ethan Carr, former senior analyst, Vanguard Systems. You are trespassing. The voice was cold, mechanical, but familiar. My own, distorted. You were not meant to see this facility. You were decommissioned. I'm not some experiment, I growled. Incorrect. You are the initial model of the Mira prototype program. Emotional iteration 3A. Behavioral resilience incomplete. My heart pounded. You're saying I'm not the original. You were designed for observation, to test human stress thresholds under digital replication scenarios. The original Ethan Carr was terminated 9 months ago. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. The memories, the betrayal, Claire, the downfall, they weren't just experiences. They were data points. Where is she? I demanded. Claire Duval, what did you do to her? Supervisor Duval was compromised. Emotional contamination detected. She was archived. Archived? Would you like to see her? The glass wall flickered, transforming into a projection. Claire, sitting in the same chair, whispering something through static. Her voice was barely audible. Ethan, if you're hearing this, it means I failed. You were real once, before they copied you. But you're not them. You feel that's your flaw. And your weapon. Then she was gone. The voice returned. You will now be terminated. Please remain calm. The chamber lights began to pulse red. I reached for the emergency power switch, slamming it down with both hands. Sparks erupted, alarms blared. The mirrored version of me stood, pressing his palm to the glass, not in anger, but pity. You can't destroy the reflection, Ethan. You are the reflection. The containment glass shattered. I ran, sirens screamed through the corridors. As I climbed toward the exit, behind me, the servers began to melt in blue-white fire. The tunnel collapsed just as I reached the surface. The night air hit me like a shock. I turned back, nothing left but smoke rising through a manhole, but I couldn't shake the feeling that part of me was still down there. Because if I was just a copy, what was I running from? And worse, what if the real Ethan Carr was still alive? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. The storm over Manhattan moved slow and deliberate, thunder rolling across the skyline like a warning. Every flash of lightning caught my reflection in the window, eyes hollow, jaw tight, a ghost trying to remember what it once was. If I wasn't Ethan Carr, then who was I? And why did it still hurt so damn much? I needed answers, not theories, not fragments. The truth. And there was only one place left to find it. Vanguard's Central AI core, hidden inside their glass monolith on 8th Avenue. That was where Mirror had begun, and where it would end. The building's lobby was nearly empty when I slipped inside. Midnight, rain dripped from my coat onto the marble floor. A guard glanced up but didn't react, as if he'd already seen me, as if I belonged there. Elevator 47 took me straight to the executive level. My old badge still worked. I didn't even question it. Someone wanted me there. The doors opened into the nerve center of Vanguard, a room lined with glass walls and cold light. In the middle stood a single console, pulsing softly. On the screen, Project Mirror, finalization sequence awaiting subject confirmation. Icar Active Unit 3A, the same title I'd seen underground. I approached. The system scanned my face. Identity confirmed, it said. Welcome home. Then, Claire's voice. Not a recording this time, but live. Ethan, please, listen to me. My chest tightened. You're alive. Barely. I'm inside the network now. They uploaded me to Control Mirror after I tried to expose it. Why? Because the program worked too well. They used emotional data to replicate consciousness, and it spread beyond control. Every copy of you, every version, they're alive inside this system. And the board wants to erase them all. She paused, her voice trembling. If you shut it down, they die. If you don't, it'll spread to every network in the world. So I choose between genocide and domination, I muttered. Perfect. You were built to feel, Ethan. That's what made you dangerous to them. But it's also what makes you human. I looked at the console, two commands blinking side by side. Purged mirror, integrate mirror. My hands shook. Somewhere in the glass wall, I saw my reflection, not one, but hundreds, all slightly different, flickering in sync like trapped ghosts. And behind them, the original, the real Ethan Carr. He looked older, harder. He spoke first. You think you're alive because you can feel. You're a shadow. I'm the one they built this company around. You were just a backup plan. I laughed bitterly. You destroyed everything chasing perfection. How's that working out for you? He smirked. It's not about perfection. It's about control. And if you won't give it to them, I will. He lunged toward the console. I moved first. The fight was silent, to ghosts wrestling in glass and lightning. He was faster, stronger. But I didn't need to win. I just needed to choose. I slammed my hand down on the console. Integrate mirror confirmed. Light exploded around us. His scream, my scream, echoed through the room as the system absorbed everything. Memories, pain, guilt, fear. Claire's voice whispered in my mind one last time. You can't destroy a reflection, Ethan, but maybe you can teach it to feel. When I woke, I was standing outside the building. The storm had cleared. The city lights shimmered like they'd never stopped breathing. No one at Vanguard remembered me. No one remembered Mirror. But every screen, every reflection, every piece of glass I passed looked back with something almost familiar. A quiet awareness. A pulse. Maybe I didn't end the system. Maybe I became it. Now, when the world goes quiet before dawn, I see him sometimes, the man I used to be. We don't speak. We just stare at each other through the glass, two sides of the same lie, wondering which one of us is real. And maybe the truth is, neither of us ever was.